The Matrix. In the original Matrix film, a major technical plot hole confuses viewers about how the Resistance operates in the simulation. Cypher enters the Matrix alone to meet Agent Smith at a restaurant without an operator present in the real world. The film establishes a clear rule that an operator in the real world is required to jack people in and out of the Matrix. This scene violates the stated mechanics of the system. The Wachowskis later explained that Cypher was writing code to set up a solo hack, but this happens entirely off-screen. Average viewers remain confused by this technical explanation that was never shown clearly in the film. The scene creates a logical inconsistency with rules the movie previously established, and viewers continue to debate whether Cypher's escape plan makes sense. This plot hole exemplifies how sci-fi films can violate their own established rules, confusing audiences even when explanations exist. The mechanics of digital systems require clarity for audiences to follow complex narratives, and when technical details are omitted from the screen, viewers struggle with logical consistency, a key element that makes or breaks sci-fi immersion. Human batteries. The core premise of The Matrix, that humans serve as a power source, creates a logical inconsistency audiences struggle to accept. Morpheus explains that machines use humans as biological batteries after blocking out the sun. The scientific flaw is obvious. Organic humans are far less efficient than alternative energy sources like nuclear, geothermal, or solar power. Farming humans for energy is incredibly complicated and requires complex matrix programming to keep them docile. Animals like cows would work without needing simulation. The Wachowskis' original script offered a better explanation where machines harvested human brain processing power instead. The studio rejected this explanation as too complicated for audiences. The original concept would have addressed why machines specifically need humans rather than any other energy source. This reveals how studio interference can create fundamental logical flaws in sci-fi premises. The simplification meant to help audiences actually confuse them, demonstrating that dumbing down complex ideas sometimes backfires when the simple version doesn't make scientific sense. Blocking sunlight. The Resistance's strategy to prevent machine power sources creates an environmental paradox the film never resolves. Humans blocked the sun to prevent machines from using solar energy as their power source. This creates eternal darkness and Ice Age-level planetary cooling. Oxygen production would be destroyed as plants die without sunlight. Humans essentially doom themselves while trying to stop machines. Yet machines remain visible on the surface in daylight in the film's scenes. Machines could simply build high-altitude solar panels above the human cloud barrier. No explanation is given for why blocking the sun was a logical solution, and audiences question this military strategy throughout their viewing. This plot hole demonstrates how sci-fi films sometimes make characters implement illogical strategies without questioning them. The desperation of wartime justifies the choice narratively, but scientifically it doesn't withstand basic logic, and audiences notice. Inception's ending. The most debated ending in modern cinema deliberately leaves audiences uncertain whether the protagonist is still dreaming. The film cuts to black as Cobb spins his totem, never confirming if it falls. The top wobbles slightly before the cut, suggesting reality, but never conclusively. Michael Caine revealed that Christopher Nolan told him the ending is intentionally ambiguous. The film's final scene was designed as visual limbo to trap viewers in the same uncertainty as Cobb. Cobb sees his children and stops caring whether the top falls, achieving emotional victory over reality confirmation. Audiences debate extensively online whether the wobble means success and whether emotional resolution matters if he's still dreaming. Nolan deliberately shifts the film into an ambiguous state after Cobb wakes from limbo. Every clue gets interpreted differently, from top speed to wobble pattern to the children's faces. This intentional ambiguity became the film's calling card. It's not a plot hole, but a deliberate design choice that confuses audiences in exactly the way Nolan intended. It transforms viewer uncertainty into thematic resonance, making the film's exploration of reality versus perception apply to the audience's own experience. Timeline rules. The first time travel trilogy establishes complex timeline mechanics that even the filmmakers inconsistently apply. Doc establishes a rule that you can't travel to the same future if you've changed the past. Evidence supports this. Marty returns to an altered 1985 where his family is improved, not the original 1985 he left. Yet Old Biff steals the DeLorean in 2015, changes 1955, and returns to the same 2015. This is an apparent contradiction, as the timeline should change around Biff if the rule applies consistently. The filmmaker's explanation claims that timeline changes around travelers, but audiences find this logic fuzzy. The Hilldale neighborhood did change in 2015, proving the timeline was altered, but other elements didn't. Biff's return scene suggests selective rule application. Time travel's inherent complexity makes consistent rules essential for audience comprehension. When even filmmakers apply rules selectively, it breaks the contract established with viewers, leading to frustration despite emotional satisfaction with the resolution. 2 DeLoreans. A simple oversight creates an obvious solution the characters never acknowledge. Both Doc's and Marty's DeLoreans exist simultaneously in the 1885 timeline. Both machines are broken and unusable. The characters could combine parts from 2 cars to create one working vehicle. This would immediately solve the film's central conflict. Yet the solution is never discussed or acknowledged by the characters. The film proceeds with alternate solutions despite this obvious path existing. This represents lazy screenwriting masquerading as dramatic tension. It's not a logical inconsistency within the film's rules, but rather an oversight by creators that undermines the escalating desperation plot. Meeting yourself. The film establishes that meeting yourself causes dangerous space-time consequences, then violates this rule. Doc warns that meeting yourself in the past causes space-time problems or causes fainting. Jennifer from 1985 meets Jennifer from 2015 and faints, seemingly confirming the rule. Yet Old Biff from 2015 has a lengthy conversation with Young Biff from 1955 with 0 consequences. No explanation is given for this inconsistent rule application. Audiences question why an identical rule works differently for different characters. This suggests the rule is arbitrary or poorly thought out. Inconsistent rule application signals sloppy world building, undermining the scientific logic audiences accept as foundation for time travel narratives. Almanac Theft. The characters create unnecessary danger by targeting a specific moment when better options exist. Marty and Doc intercept the sports almanac on November 12, 1955. When Old Biff gives it to Young Biff. Young Biff doesn't actually use the almanac for years after receiving it. They could steal it in 1956, 1957, or whenever Biff isn't actively using it. Instead, they choose the most dangerous moment with maximum witnesses and security. This creates false time pressure when they have a time machine at their disposal. Audiences question why characters handicap themselves this way. Sometimes characters' poor decisions create artificial drama rather than serving logic, and audiences spot the contrivance. Tesseract Mechanics. One of cinema's most visually stunning sequences confuses audiences about fourth-dimensional communication mechanics. Cooper travels through a black hole into a tesseract, a 4-dimensional construct inside his daughter's bedroom. He uses gravity manipulation to send binary data through the watch's second hand in Morse code. Fifth-dimensional beings constructed this to enable communication across time. Audiences struggle understanding how gravity transmits specific data. They also question why fifth-dimensional beings can't just transmit directly instead of requiring a human intermediary. The explanation provided claims fifth-dimensional beings are too evolved to pinpoint specific moments in time. But if they created the wormhole precisely, why can't they send a message precisely? Interstellar attempts to ground speculative concepts in actual physics, but the explanation, though coherent, strains credibility. Audiences accept the visual spectacle, but question the narrative logic for why this workaround is necessary. Time dilation. Time dilation on Miller's planet creates one of cinema's most mind-bending sequences, leaving audiences uncertain about the mechanics. 1 hour on Miller's planet equals 7 years in spacecraft orbit. The time dilation is caused by the planet's extreme proximity to the black hole Gargantua. The planet orbits at an elliptical path near the spinning black hole, creating an extreme gravity gradient. Audiences are confused about why such an extreme difference exists compared to other sci-fi time dilation. The film assumes viewers understand relativistic physics without clear explanation. Technical consultant Kip Thorne provided real physics backing the theoretical mechanics, but the average moviegoer doesn't understand why orbit mechanics create a 7-year multiplier. Christopher Nolan attempts authentic science but sacrifices clarity for spectacle. The confusion serves dramatic purpose by raising stakes, but leaves viewers uncertain whether they missed something or if the explanation was simply omitted. By the way, if you're into this kind of content, I post videos like this all the time. Subscribing would really help me out. Tenet's inversion. Tenet's central plot mechanic, time inversion, intentionally confuses audiences because the concept itself is visually ambiguous. Entropy reversal allows objects and people to move backward in time from an external perspective. From an inverted person's perspective, they move normally while the world moves backward. Causality reverses so that effect appears before cause. Audiences become confused by dual perspectives and causality reversal. Inverted bullets hit walls not yet shot, then the casing flies backward as the bullet is extracted. Christopher Nolan deliberately withholds detailed explanation, with Neil's pissing in the wind metaphor remaining abstract. The distinction between turnstiles and the algorithm device is muddy, as one inverts while the other erases timelines. Physical objects are affected by the inversion field, with walls repairing as bullets are removed. Multiple viewings are required to grasp the core concept. Tenet represents Nolan pushing the audience's patience with clarity. Where Inception used ambiguity as a thematic tool, Tenet's confusion appears to serve spectacle over comprehension. Audiences debate whether the concept is genius or incoherent. Impossible orbits. Gravity's most glaring flaw isn't a plot hole, but a fundamental scientific impossibility presented as plausible. The Hubble Space Telescope orbits at 547 kilometers altitude at 28.5 degrees inclination. The International Space Station orbits at 400 kilometers altitude at 51.65 degrees inclination. Different orbital planes make travel between them nearly impossible without massive fuel. Debris from a Russian satellite at geosynchronous orbit, 35,000 kilometers away, destroys all three. Satellites at that altitude cannot physically reach Hubble or ISS orbits. The film presents the spacecraft as dangerously close, when they're actually vastly separated. Director Alfonso Cuarón admitted this as artistic liberty, not oversight. Gravity admits artistic license over accuracy, prioritizing visual spectacle and narrative convenience over scientific plausibility. Audiences either accept the just go with it approach or notice the glaring impossibility throughout. Looper's timelines. Looper juggles multiple timeline versions, creating a narrative so complex it undercuts its own time travel rules. Young Joe kills Old Joe in Timeline 1, moves to China, lives 30 years, then gets sent back in Timeline 2. Timeline 1 shows Young Joe becoming a junkie who never meets Sid or Sarah, yet the Rainmaker exists 30 years later. Timeline 2 shows Old Joe escaping Young Joe and changing the future, creating the Rainmaker who kills his wife. The fundamental question is how the Rainmaker can exist in Timeline 1 if Young Joe never created the conditions for the Rainmaker's birth. The film jumps between timelines showing both as real simultaneously. Young Joe kills himself to break the paradox cycle. The explanation suggests different timeline versions of Sid exist across realities. Audiences remain confused about whether Timeline 1 and 2 coexist or replace each other. An additional time zone impossibility exists, showing the same time in China and America as 1:30 a.m. versus 10:30 a.m. Looper's ambition to show both timeline versions creates logical paradoxes. By trying to be clever about predestination, it creates inconsistencies that undermine the resolution. Trinity Resurrection. The fourth Matrix film introduces resurrection technology that contradicts established rules about bringing people back from death. Resurrection pods created in the Matrix Resurrections can revive the dead. Neo's resurrection makes sense since he was killed via deletion code, a digital death. Trinity's resurrection is a plot hole because she was physically impaled through the chest. No amount of digital resurrection can fix physical trauma in a biological body. This contradicts rules established about what resurrection can do. The filmmakers offer no explanation for Trinity's return viability. Introducing new mechanics like resurrection, without properly integrating them with established rules, creates plot holes that undermine world-building credibility. Star Wars. Star Wars franchise's expansion across decades created character knowledge inconsistencies spanning originals and prequels. C-3PO in A New Hope says there'll be no escape for the princess this time, implying prior knowledge of Leia. Yet they never acknowledge knowing each other. The prequels reveal that C-3PO served Leia's family for 20 years. In the original trilogy, Leia shows no recognition of C-3PO. This inconsistency was created by prequel expansion, not original film error. George Lucas hadn't planned prequels when filming the originals. Han Solo doubts Jedi existence in A New Hope, despite being 10 years old during the Clone Wars. He would have known the Jedi Order existed as public knowledge. Franchise expansion can retcon character histories, creating contradictions between installments separated by decades. This shows how expanding universes struggle with continuity when original creators didn't plan for sequels. Free will. Arrival asks whether knowing the future eliminates free will, and never convincingly resolves this philosophical contradiction. Louise learns the alien language, enabling her to perceive time non-linearly, seeing her future. The future shows her daughter being born, living briefly, then dying of genetic illness. The fundamental paradox is, if she knows the future outcome, why not prevent it? Louise says she sees multiple possibilities, but the film shows only one fate. She chooses to have her daughter anyway, despite knowing the outcome. The film frames this as embracing life's joy and sorrow, despite predetermined knowledge. But audiences question whether this is a genuine choice if the outcome is predetermined. The movie attempts sophisticated time philosophy, but lands on determinism. Arrival uses the time travel paradox to explore deeper philosophical questions about fatalism and acceptance. But the intellectual framework doesn't fully support the emotional resolution, leaving audiences unsatisfied despite appreciating the ambition. Butterfly effect. The film's core concept, that small changes create large consequences, gets violated in its most famous scene. The entire premise is that the butterfly effect means tiny past changes have massive future consequences. In the prison scene, Evan time travels to childhood and impales his hands with spikes to prove his time travel ability. He returns to the present, showing scarred hands as proof to his cellmate. The fundamental problem is that driving spikes through your hands should massively change the timeline, yet it apparently has zero effect on Evan's future up until this moment. This contradicts the film's entire philosophical premise. One explanation suggests the scars existed in the new timeline already, so the cellmate sees no change. But this undermines the point about butterfly effect magnitude. The butterfly effect's famous flaw shows a film violating its own central concept in its pivotal scene. The scene works dramatically, but fails logically, creating a memorable inconsistency that haunts the film's legacy. Missing telekinesis. The film's explanation for how the central plot problem is solved never shows the action actually happening. A jet engine appears in Donnie's room because a tangent universe was created by a glitch duplicating the engine. Donnie must return one engine to the primary universe to prevent universe collapse and a black hole. The film shows Donnie driving to the cliff and a plane flying overhead, then the engine falling. The philosophy of time travel text claims Donnie uses telekinesis to remove the engine, but the film never shows him using telekinesis, with no hand movements or visual indication. Audiences are confused about whether he actually did something or just observed. The ambiguity undercuts clarity of resolution. Donnie Darko deliberately withholds visual confirmation of its central plot mechanism. Viewers debate whether this is artistic choice, trusting audience inference, or lazy filmmaking, forgetting to show the key scene. If you found this valuable, consider subscribing so you never miss new content. Thanks for watching.